Oh, this is Angela Bennett from Advice Resolutions, signing in again outside of the Jedburgh Sheriff Court. And today's theme, we want to talk about judicial impropriety, whether or not judges should be, as some people would be, most people you hope would be, subject to the loss of their job if they had acted inappropriately. They would be subject to gross misconduct or even misconduct. But what if a judge who has been sworn in, who is on the roll, who has been registered, has acted unfairly and shown criminality, they've taken bribes or some other vindictive or iniquitous conduct? Would the overall organisations in Scotland investigate these judges? Well, I think that they should, because judges are there to preside over cases, and you expect their wisdom to be, available to balance and hear justice and dispense justice and listen to cases in a fair way with a rationale and not so irrationale, and use the law appropriately, read the legislation up, down, sideways, and take in other aspects of law to make law make sense. But if they're not, would you not expect the Lord Advocate of the Scottish jurisdiction to intervene, to look into whether or not a judge has acted with impropriety or illegality or criminality or any such like? Because I would expect the Lord Advocate or any Advocate General to preside over any matters, for example, that were not legal, that were in breach of the European Convention on Human Rights. And in one particular court, which I'd like to mention to you that springs to mind, is this court here in Jedburgh, whereby we have judges who just, iniquitously decide a person's guilty, although they've complied with illegality, but they've complied with the law. They can actually just write out at a quick, pen that the person has breached the law when clearly there's no evidence that they've actually done so. And as they actually haven't done so, the courts can actually act with impunity. And if they do act with impunity, that means that judges are free to make decisions that aren't actually legally compliant. So what does that mean for the person on the receiving end of these courts that are acting illegally and they're fostering inequality? Well, it means that unless you have an entity, an outside organisation who can preside over impropriety, illegality, corruption, and etc., of the not of the norms of what you expect in judicial decisions, you have to say to yourself that there probably isn't much of a chance, but there may be some chance that an organisation will pick up and they will observe and they will scrutinise the decisions that these judges are making that aren't actually legal. So take, for example, in this court in Jedburgh, judges preside over cases that they may have an unhealthy interest in, and if they do have an unhealthy interest in a case, they should recuse themselves. It has been known to happen in Jedburgh that they have recused themselves, and it has worked, but unfortunately they're back again to decide pre-trial decisions. Now, judges in cases in which are involved who have perhaps written illegal arrest warrants or done some other iniquitous conduct shouldn't be involved in any process in a judicial sense, in a judicial manner, in any way, in a matter in which a criminal case defence matter is running. Because it doesn't matter at what point this particular judge is making a decision, although they're not hearing the full trial, they shouldn't be involved in any part of the person's case whatsoever. Because any judge who has an interest in their own cause has an unhealthy interest. They have a pecuniary interest, and their interests should not be taken into consideration because they are biased and they are very perverse. So the only answer is to remove a judge completely from hearing any case, any pre-decision before trial in anyone's case, and if that is not satisfied, the Lord Advocate or the Attorney General of the legal jurisdiction should get involved and remove the judge by paperwork, force, by procedure, and by convention, because the only way you'll get a fair hearing is in a fair court. And if the court is not fair, that court should be presiding over a case somewhere else in some other jurisdiction, because clearly if a judge is racist as it's discovered in this particular court in Jedburgh, if they're racist and they have prejudices and their behaviour, their conduct is so irrational, no fair hearing could ever arise in this court behind me in Jedburgh whatsoever. The court case should be transferred somewhere else, give it a fresh start, give it a fresh perspective, and give it an overall respect that a case is due and a person is due, and their human rights preserved, and their right to dignity, and their right to humanity, and their right to literally have the courts preside over legislative applications that they should. So stay tuned and we'll be in touch. Okay, goodbye.